We're all just free range humans on a tax farm. The idea is like the movie The Matrix. We're being farmed, but for what? That's the idea of the prison planet Demiurge. And the theory out there is that we're being farmed off our negative emotions, our pain, our suffering, that this planet is a harvesting ground from us. So we are the cattle here. And that's the reincarnation trap from kind of the Gnostic Christian view that you're here perpetually for eternity reincarnating. You're already in hell. You started in hell. You never had the chance to get out. Your only way out is to bushwhack your way out. And the idea is when you have gnosis, when you have awakening, you actually have the power to break free. You just don't know it. It's kind of like you're in a prison cell and the keys under your pillow, but you never looked. In Eckhart Tolle's the book, The Power of Now, he tells a story of there's a poor man sitting on a box and asking for change, and someone comes up to him and is like, you're rich, you have gold in that box. And the man's like, I've looked in that box, there's no gold. And the guy says to him, well, look again. And he opens the box that he's sitting on and it's packed with gold. That's kind of the situation. I think Ananda Maima says something with like spirituality where we're like a muddy stone from the riverbed, but there's gold within, but it's covered by all the mud. But it's always been there, but it just looks like a rock from the outside. You have to kind of break it off, shine it. And Zen talks about the mirror, the dusty mirror. You can't see your reflection because it's dusty. You have to remove what's not real to see what's real. You have to drop pretense. And so that's the idea with this. If you if you want to escape, you have to come to those conclusions yourself and really believe it. Because at the moment of death, that's your way out. That's the theory, is that instead of going to the light, which is reincarnation, you're strong enough to not go towards the light, to fight off the demons that will try to keep you in the cycle. Because we're like the Matrix, where we're cattle, where you're going to go through another 100 years of pain to give them their meat, which is our pain and anger and all our negative emotions fuels them. We're like a battery for some other being or something. That's the idea. It's kind of like simulation theory. And it kind of makes sense when you look at the pain of this world. The idea of the demiurge makes a lot more sense. The idea of this being the prison planet isn't so far-fetched when you see what's going on, especially recently. You see these war crimes, you see the suffering, that it's not completely out of the realm of possibility, like an alien on this planet when you don't agree with how things are going. I always find it funny where it's, when you see injustice in the world and, life's not fair, you have to get over it. But I think as children, we have that kind of natural Morris compass that goes the true north. Like no one doesn't, we haven't been beaten down by society yet. So our natural morality internally, we have that compass. And there's been studies where there was kids and they show that kids at a very young age always already understand fairness. Animals are the same. They understand the sense of fairness. And we kind of get converted into the system, beaten down, we become the automatons, we become the nodes of the computer, and we're just gears in the machine that keeps moving forward. And if we're all going to die anyway, you'd think we'd make it nicer for each other, but we don't. So I like the movie The Truman Show with Jim Carrey, where it's like he's on the prison planet. It's all fake. He has to go through the hell of the storm to finally get to the other side of the ocean, and he realizes it's just the wall and he walks out. And I kind of feel like the Bible kind of has a lot of that, where you have to face death to get to the other side. You have to believe so much things aren't right that you're willing to risk it all on your moral stance. And so I think my theory personally on the demiurge is that you have to be willing at the moment of death. And I think the Zen Buddhists talk a lot about that, and Mahayana Buddhists as well, where it's like how you're feeling at the moments of death dictates what happens next with reincarnation. That if you're accepting of it, but if there's like any attachment, if there's any negative emotion, then you get sucked back in. So it's kind of like you have to die free and clear of the karma, and you can't, you know, become a coward and want to go towards the light. Because the light, that's the thing. It's like we're like bugs. You have the mosquitoes. They go to the bug zapper. There's a light, and they get bzz, you get buzzed. That's kind of what happens to us. You just naturally are instincts to go to the light. And a lot of the NDEs I watch, it's the opposite. The people that don't go towards the light just stay in the darkness, and then they find out that they're outside the system quickly. It's like, oh, they don't have to go back to all this. There are an eternal space. They don't have to go through all this again. It's easier to go back to the devil in a way. And again, we don't know. You have to die to find out, right? But the reincarnation stuff, if you look at it, there's been studies where I think our US presidents, like practically all of them, are related to past like monarchs and stuff. Even Barack Obama is like related to one. There's like a ruling class here, and there's been things where like there's a Anne Hathaway, our Anne Hathaway looks like Shakespeare's wife and the guy she was with. Like there's kind of this weird reincarnation genetically. So it's not completely out there. And just like as humans, like we're free range humans on a tax farm. We think we're free even in our societies, but it doesn't matter what country you live. You need a fishing license, hunting license. You have to pay this tax and that tax. And if you're homeless now, you're getting pushed all around. Like our society's built, we have these systems that got created. It's we have this sort of machinery going all the time, and it's very unusual in nature. Usually with animals, even predatory animals, they have sort of territories, but it's kind of the wild west out there. There's not They might have systems socially within their species, but we're the first species to terraform the planet. We're the first species to like change our environment. We can change the marshland into a parking lot, right? Maybe the beaver is probably the only animal that can actually change the landscape outside of us. So it's unusual that we're able to build it. And a lot of people say too, the agrarian system, the farmland, when we stop being nomadic, when we're more like animals, you're following the the herd, your nomadic lifestyle. You had to have kind of a level of social harmony and fairness because everyone was working together to survive harsh decisions. Now you don't have to care about your neighbor. You don't have to care about that person getting bombed in another country right now. It doesn't affect you on a daily basis. You're not even seeing the carnage. So the isolation, the rugged individualism of America, especially where it's like we're so individualistic. We value ourselves more than kind of the tribe. There's other, you don't want the other side of the communism either, but I think there's a balance. And the idea of the demiurge kind of shows that this planet is organized in a weird way. That's There is kind of like natural laws here, and it's everything eats each other. Everything has to destroy something to survive. It's survival of the fittest. It's not a very nice place to be if you think about it. And even your cute cat or something is gonna go chomp on a mouse, go kill a mouse or something. There's our cute little pets, right, are really kind of ravenous animals, and as are we. We're killing. We don't see it every day. We're getting our meat from meat packing plants, and there's stories of the people that are slaughtering the animals that they have like post-traumatic stress disorder. Like people freak out and they go crazy because they're murdering animals every day. Like it gets to them. But the average person like you and me is probably not doing that. I think we really should return to a society where we are hunting our own food. You are like a Native American, you kill that deer, but you use every piece of it. You're using the sinews to make clothing. There's like a respect for the animal. Like you're not going to waste it. Like we're just so wasteful with how we eat and how we kill all these animals. We pump them full of chemicals, and then we get cancers because we're making industrial seed oil slop. It's kind of a we have we have hell on earth, really, in a lot of ways as it stands. So the demiurge, and we have so many movies like The Matrix, and Hinduism and Zen, and many other faiths like Sufism as well. They have kind of this esotericness that's been discussed for thousands of years. The Matrix is for our generation, if you're a millennial, is something that we kind of saw in like a Western way, but these ideas have been discussed for centuries from the beginning of time. Who are we? What are we here for? Just existential questions. But that's the craziest part. The demiurge means we're here as cattle, much as we treat our own animals, like some other being is farming us. And they say the best prison is the one that you don't see the bars. You don't think you're in prison, right? This is the ultimate prison if you think of it, because you just think, well, this is how things are. I'm on the planet. I need to eat. I don't want to be homeless. I gotta kind of get in line and just kind of like get through life, right? And I kind of notice a lot of homeless when they're not drugged out. Maybe someone just hit hard times and stuff. There's a different attitude. They're like philosophers. They have a Zen like spiritual nature to them, where it's like they've seen a lot. They've seen people helping them. They've been kicked to the curb like a cockroach. Like how we treat our homeless is so offensive in this country. It's we're willing to, try to send people to the moon and all this stuff, but we can't feed people. We have people dying in other countries, kids that can't, they're not even getting enough food every day. It's like we have all these goals, but we can't even like do the basics. We can't even take care of ourselves on this prison planet. And I remember the movie Snowpiercer, spoiler alert if you haven't seen it. Snowpiercer really shows how our society is built. And the crux of it is that they were on a train, and the whole planet is in like frozen wasteland. So the train is the only thing moving in warm enough so people could survive. So and the train only has so many cars. So there's like kind of the rich class and the poor class, and the elites, and kind of communist kind of style of like bourgeoisie proletariat. And they're eating literally like cockroach like paste essentially that's put into bricks, and they're barely given enough, but the elites are eating like fancy food. And as the movie goes on, there's like a war between the elites and the poors. And the crazy part was the leader of the poors was in cahoots with the elites, that a certain number of people have to die because the train only has so much resources to like feed everyone. So it's kind of like the wars that were happening on the train, the killing, they needed to kill a certain amount to allow essentially the human civilization on this train to continue. Piercer shows us the human condition, where there is like kind of a cruel logic. There is so many resources. I think even as of this week or something, for the first time, India doesn't have a positive growth for babies. Like the population is like negative, because like there truly is only so much resources on the planet, and they have to be, if they're not allocated efficiently, there you actually can't support population. So people have to immigrate across the world to like get resources. So we're kind of in a resource game, just like Snowpiercer. So the wars are getting fought over water or food or oil, as we're seeing. And it's kind of all for naught, because we have to survive, but we also make things worse than it has to be. And if we're getting farmed off our negative emotions, and I have noticed that it seems like sometimes when I've been really good and I'm not reacting emotionally to things, and I'm being really positive, and then something bad happens, and I kind of flip back to the old me for a second, and I'm acting out, and it's like I feel this guilt that something happened, right? That like this energy got released. I feel worn out, acting all crazy or something. It's kind of getting someone's like poking you, and you finally explode. They got the reaction you want. I kind of feel like the universe kind of pokes you to try to get that reaction. And I think the whole idea of the demiurge is a hard pill for people to swallow, because like most of spirituality that's not dogmatic, tied to directly to a religion, it's hard for people to maybe think everything they know is a lie or false, or what they believe to be true isn't. I think people have a really hard time accepting that their whole worldview might be incorrect. I was like that for many years as well. But I think there's a power in like being an agnostic to some degree that you don't really know. You can have your theories and you can try to live a good life, but we don't know what we really are and what this planet's for. And even when you die, what if you just go to the light and then you don't even know you reincarnate. You get men in black, your memory gets wiped, you're sent back to the planet. You're cattle for another 100 years. So it's we got to wonder what this is all for. Because if we die anyways, we accumulate all this wealth, we have all these dramas with other people. It's like a play, and then the play ends, and then there's a play the next day. It's kind of like it just starts again, right? And that's the goal, is to get out of this. And that's why even in a lot of faiths like Christianity, heaven and hell, there's a place to go that's good and there's a place to go to bad. The idea of the demiurge is there's this is the false place. Everything else besides hell is good. There's not purgatory, there's not this. It's just this is a prison planet and we're here for some reason. And then the other theories too are we're one with God, we're a piece of the whole, we're like a drop of water from the ocean, and we're like a bubble in the ocean, like sea foam that rises up off the water for a second, and your little bubble that's floating up, and you pop and then you sprinkle back down into the ocean. So like our life is just this kind of brief moment in time, but we were never really away from our true being. We were still water. We were just in a different form, like ice, like steam, like liquid water. We just converted to a different form of ourselves. Like the wave is just the wave thinks it's not part of the ocean, but you're part of a larger system. So we have to think too, is are we what are we really? Like who is doing the thinking right now? Like who is, where do these thoughts come from? Who is the voice in your head when you're hearing yourself think? Who is witnessing that thinking? You start thinking about that, like the witness element of there gets a weird feeling where you can like see yourself from a third person kind of point of view when you get away from the reptile stimulus and response. And I think the demiurge idea is like kind of the ultimate thing with that, where you start questioning what all this really is, you know, and it's like all the religions are kind of pointing to the same ideals, and there's a lot of similarities, and it kind of all leads to the same thing. And that's another question. It's like the demiurge is the false god. So but we're trapped on a planet not able to be home. And for me, a lot of the time my spiritual practice, I think, is more of like a preparation for war. I want to be in that moment of death ready to fight, because people talk about that near death experiences, that sometimes they're kind of like in a battle with a demon kind of thing, like, or they're calling upon their faith, whether it's Christianity, Islam, they're calling upon the good, and there's kind of a battle of good and evil that happens in their near death experience. And I had my own NDE and I have a video on it, and there was that element of when I was getting taken, I was ready to go. I was surprised at myself that I've been studying Zen for years, but I didn't think it had really an effect on that kind of way, on a deep sort of level, because you don't know until you're tested. It's like driving a car. You can read all the books and watch all the videos on how to drive a car, but until you're in traffic and you're driving the car and there's cars whizzing by, it's a totally different experience. I think the same thing with spiritual practice. Until you're put to the ultimate test at the highest stakes. And so I kind of passed the test, oddly. It was kind of a weird moment for me, because I kind of, there's a story by Murakami, and he has a story where a guy has like a mark on his face like Cain and Abel, and he was destined not to die. It's like he couldn't die. He's been living like a vampire. He's been living for thousands of years. So the punishment was to keep living. And for me, it was kind of like that moment. Since like I wasn't afraid of death, I felt like the demiurge or the universe is like, well, then continue living as your punishment. if you're not afraid. It's kind of like a parent when they're taking away a TV show or something as you're a kid, or they're, sending you to your room, but then you like going to your room, or like they find out you don't like the TV show anymore. So like the punishment isn't working. So they find a new punishment for you. So that for me, I kind of feel like that's my punishment is to continue living. Like my punishment is to live for like 100, to be like the oldest person that ever has lived. I'm like 130 years old somehow. It's like it'll be easier just to go. And so like that's my punishment, I feel like. Or I'll get taken all of a sudden because they're like, all right, this guy's got it. Like let's try to get him to go to the light and do this again. He got too far on this trip. He knows too much. We gotta erase his memory again, right? So it's an intellectual exercise, but at the same time it isn't. So it could be real. And the older I'm getting, the more the demiurge makes sense to me. And the channel The Prison Called Life introduced me to this idea. I'd never heard such an idea my entire life. I'm 40 years old and I've never heard about the demiurge until like 2 years ago. And he doesn't even talk about the demiurge anymore, oddly. Like he rarely brings it up. And maybe because people don't like talking about it as much anymore, but that always, just the idea that I've never come across it. I never had a reason, never heard the word before him mentioning it. And and now I find myself talking about it. I talked about this with a few people even. It's like it's kind of an addicting idea. I feel like it's just just from the philosophical point of like looking at it from a 30,000 foot view of maybe this could be true, or maybe it's a part of this could be true, or none of it could be true. But is it any less or more true than any of our dogmatic religions? Because we all have theories. It's just like science. We have constantly, oh, we think, you know, black holes are X, and then we find out, oh, actually, black holes do Y. So we were wrong about that. It's scientific theory. We think our science is so advanced, but we know so little about the universe. We're always wrong. That we have to update the theory, and then that theory gets updated. Now I think we're on like string theory. Like we have so many theories that they keep, so it's same with religion. We have all these theories. It's like religion isn't the science of religion isn't even that far off our regular science. And if anything, I know Albert Einstein studied in the East with the Buddhists, and he saw that they had talked about atoms, where it was they were talking about how matter was more like foam that had spaces between it. A lot of his ideas came from the Eastern thought. Like the mandalas have a lot of hidden knowledge in it. So, the science of religion in a weird way might be more advanced than our actual science of the material world. And I think they say like the more science you do, the closer you think about God. Like you kind of end up at God, and vice versa. The more the more you look into God, the more science starts to make sense. You can kind of go down each path to discover the other. So they're kind of like not mutually exclusive. They can work in tandem. You don't have to be like a scientist that doesn't believe in anything woo woo and be a woo woo that doesn't believe in science. I think, the mathematics of the universe, we've already kind of proven there is sort of a mathematical code going on, like a programmer. So simulation kind of makes sense from both a religious and a scientific viewpoint. So I can't